Chapter 8. Diamond Haze. Ippolit Matveevich took off his spotted beaver hat, combed his mustache, from which a small swarm of tiny electric sparks flew when the comb touched it, and after clearing his throat decisively, told Ostap Bender, the first con man he'd met, everything he knew about the diamonds, as told to him by his dying mother-in-law. As the story went on, Ostap jumped up several times, and turning to the iron stove, exclaimed enthusiastically, "The ice has broken, gentlemen of the jury, the ice has broken." Just an hour later, the two of them were sitting at a rickety table, heads together, reading a long list of jewels that had once adorned his mother-in-law's fingers, neck, ears, chest, and hair. Ippolit Matveevich, adjusting his pince-nez that kept slipping down his nose, said with emphasis, 3 strands of pearls, I remember it well, 2 with 40 beads each, and 1 large one with 110, a diamond pendant. Claudia Ivanovna said it was worth 4,000 antique work. And came the rings, not wedding rings, those thick, stupid, and cheap things, but thin, light ones with pure, clean diamonds embedded in them, heavy, dazzling pendants that cast multicolored fire on a small woman's ear, bracelets in the shape of snakes with emerald scales, a firmware that cost the yield of 500 acres of wheat, a pearl necklace that would only befit a famous operetta prima donna, and crowning it all, a 40,000 ruble tiara. Ippolit Matveevich looked around. In the dark corners of the plague-ridden janitor's room, an emerald spring light flashed and trembled. A diamond haze hung under the ceiling. Pearl beads rolled across the table and bounced on the floor. The precious mirage shook the room. The excited Ippolit Matveevich only came to his senses at the sound of Ostap's voice. Not a bad selection. The stones, I see, are chosen with taste. How much was all this music worth? 70 to 75,000. Now that's worth 150,000. Really that much? Vorobyaninov asked, delighted. No less, but you, my dear comrade from Paris, forget all about it. Forget about it, how? Spit on it, Ostap replied, like they did before the era of historical materialism. Nothing will come of it. How so? Like this, how many chairs were there? A dozen, a donkey suite. Your living room suite probably burned in the stoves a long time ago. Vorobyaninov was so frightened that he even stood up. Calm down, I'm taking over. The meeting continues. By the way, we need to make a little deal. Ippolit Matveevich, breathing heavily, nodded his agreement. Then Ostap Bender began to work out the conditions. In the event of the treasure's realization, I, as a direct participant in the concession and technical director of the project, receive 60%, and you don't have to pay Social Security for me. I don't care anyway. Ippolit Matveevich turned gray. That's daylight robbery. And how much did you think you'd offer me? WWL 5% or 10 at most. You have to understand that's 15,000 rubles. You don't want anything else. No. Or maybe you want me to work for free, and also give you the key to the apartment where the money is, and tell you where there are no cops. In that case, excuse me, Vorobyaninov said nasally, I have every reason to think that I can handle my business alone. In that case, excuse me, the magnificent Ostap retorted, I have no less reason, as Andy Tucker used to say, to assume that I alone can handle your business. Swindler, Ippolit Matveevich shouted, trembling. Ostap was cold. Listen, Mr. from Paris, do you know that our diamonds are practically in my pocket, and you only interest me because I want to secure your old age? Only then did Ippolit Matveevich realize what iron claws had grabbed him by the throat. 20%, he said grimly. And my grub, Ostap asked mockingly. 25. And the key to the apartments. But that's 37,500. Why such precision? Oh well, so be it, 50%. Half is yours, half is mine. Bargaining continued. Ostap conceded further. Out of respect for Vorobyaninov's personality, he agreed to work for 40%. 60,000, Vorobyaninov shouted. You're quite a vulgar person, Bender retorted. You love money more than you should. And you don't love money, Ippolit Matveevich wailed in a flute-like voice. I don't. Then why do you need 60,000? On principle. Ippolit Matveevich caught his breath. Well, has the ice broken, Ostap added. Vorobyaninov puffed and said submissively. It has. Well, shake on it, I as leader of the Comanches. The ice has broken. The ice has broken, gentlemen of the jury. After Ippolit Matveevich, offended by the nickname leader of the Comanches, demanded an apology, and Ostap, while delivering the apology, called him a field marshal, they proceeded to work out the disposition. At this time, the janitor Tikhon was drinking away a ruble in the Fassy's beer hall, which had miraculously fallen into his hand. 5 blind accordion players, pressed tightly against each other, sat on a tiny wooden island, wincing from the splashes of the beer surf that reached them. Appearance of the barin and 3 bottles of beer touched the janitor to the depths of his soul. Everything seemed excellent to him. The barin, the beer, and even the warning poster. Please do not express yourselves with indecent words. The word not had long been torn out with flesh by some merrymaker, and this peculiarity amused the janitor Tikhon terribly. The janitor shook his head and muttered, "The devils came up with that." Having laughed to his heart's content, the janitor Tikhon took his last bottle and went to the neighboring table, where some completely unfamiliar young men in civilian clothes were sitting. "So, soldiers," Tikhon asked, sitting down, "is it true what they say, that the land will soon be returned to the landowners?" The young men roared with laughter. One of them asked, "Are you one of the landowners yourself?" "We're from the janitors," Tikhon replied, "but let's say the landowner has returned, and they won't give him land." "Well, of course, you fool, they won't." Tikhon was very surprised, finished his beer, got even more drunk, and babbled something incoherent about the returned barin. The young men barely managed to kick him away from their table. "The barin," Tikhon muttered, "will give a medal. My barin has arrived." "Well, what an idiot," the young men summed up. "Whose janitor is that?" "From the widow's house, formerly Vorobyaninov's. He'll come back here, sure, he's doing fine abroad. Or maybe he's returned, aiming to be a specialist." At midnight, the janitor Tikhon, grabbing onto every passing front garden and leaning against the posts for a long time, dragged himself to his cave. To his misfortune, it was a new moon. "Ah, proletarian of intellectual labor, worker of the broom," Ostap exclaimed, catching sight of the janitor bent into a wheel. The janitor moaned in a low and passionate voice, the way a toilet sometimes suddenly begins to moan hotly and fussily in the middle of the night. "That's ingenious," Ostap informed Ippolit Matveyevich, "and your janitor is quite a vulgar person. How can you get so drunk on a ruble?" "Why, you can," said the unexpectedly enlightened janitor. "Listen, Tikhon," Ippolit Matveyevich began. "Do you know, my friend, what happened to my furniture?" Ostap carefully supported Tikhon so that speech could flow freely from his wide-open mouth. Ippolit Matveyevich waited in suspense, but from the janitor's mouth, in which the teeth did not grow in a row, but every other one, burst a deafening cry. There were days of fun. Janitor's room filled with thunder and ringing. The janitor diligently and carefully performed his chorale, not missing a single word. He roared, moving around the room, sometimes unconsciously diving under the table, sometimes hitting his cap against the copper cylindrical weight of the grandfather clock, sometimes kneeling on one knee. He was terribly happy. Ippolit Matveyevich was completely lost. "We'll have to postpone the questioning of witnesses until morning," Ostap said. "Let's sleep." Janitor, heavy in his sleep as a chest of drawers, was carried to the bench. Vorobyaninov and Ostap slept together on the janitor's bed. Under Ostap's jacket was a cowboy shirt in black and red plaid. Under the cowboy shirt there was nothing more, but Ippolit Matveyevich, under the lunar vest already known to the reader, had another one, a bright blue worsted one. "That vest is ready for sale," Bender said enviously. "It'll fit me just right, sell it." It was awkward for Ippolit Matveyevich to refuse his new companion and direct participant in the concession, and he reluctantly agreed to sell it for his price, 8 rubles. "Money after the realization of our treasure," Bender declared, taking the still warm vest from Vorobyaninov. "No, I can't do that," Ippolit Matveyevich said, blushing. "Let me have the vest back." Ostap's delicate nature was outraged. "But that's shopkeeping," he shouted, "to start 150,000 ruble business and quarrel over 8 rubles. Learn to live big." Ippolit Matveyevich blushed even more, took out a small notebook and calligraphically wrote, 25/Roman 4, 27, issued to Comrade Bender 8. Ostap glanced into the booklet. "Wow, if you're already opening a personal account for me, then at least keep it right. Start a debit, start a credit. Don't forget to enter 60,000 rubles in the debit, which you owe me, and the vest in the credit. The balance in my favor is 59,992 rubles. We can still live." After that, Ostap fell asleep in a soundless, childlike sleep, and Ippolit Matveyevich took off his woolen wristbands, his baronial boots, and remaining in his darned huntsman's underwear, snorting, climbed under the blanket. He was very uncomfortable. On the outside, where there was not enough blanket, it was cold, and on the other side he was burned by the young body of the great schemer, full of trembling ideas. All 3 had dreams. Vorobyaninov had black dreams, microbes, the criminal investigation department, velvet Tolstoy shirts, and the undertaker Bezenchuk in a tuxedo, but unshaven. Ostap saw Mount Fuji, the head of the Butter Trust, and Taras Bulba selling postcards with views of Dneprstroy. The janitor dreamed that a horse had left the stable. In his dream, he searched for her until morning and, not finding her, woke up broken and gloomy. For a long time he looked with surprise at the people sleeping in his bed. Not understanding anything, he took a broom and went out into the street to perform his direct duties, picking up horse manure and yelling at the almshouse women.